Today, we're going to paint a trooper of the 501st. It's Jonathan from Two Raven Studios. Today we're going to paint a clone trooper from Star Wars Legion from Fantasy Flight Games. We're going to use the scheme of the 501st and we're going to make him look real dirty and dingy. Normally I use airbrush and oil paints and a lot of different stuff. Today I want to just do something straight regular paints. So we're just using standard acrylics and Citadel contrast. That's it. You don't need an airbrush, you don't need anything special. I want to give you guys something that you could follow along easy with. So let's grab our paints and brushes and get right into it. I lied a little bit about the airbrush. I primed it with my airbrush just because I don't have rattle can primer, but I use Vallejo Surface Primer Gray. You could use any light gray primer you want. Gray Seer by Games Workshop would be a good color here. You're just looking for a light gray that's almost white to start out from. So we're starting out with Signar Blue Base from P3 Paints, and we're painting in all of the markings on the armor. So like I said, I'm going for the 501st, which is blue markings, but you can pick whatever squad you want, whatever color you want, just get creative with it. You can also search on the internet for different references. I've picked the stereotypical Phase 2 for the 501st scheme. You can pick anything you want though. So what we're doing is drawing lines and dabbing the edge of those lines as we paint, so you can kind of see as I dab along the sides of the helmet. We don't want to create a solid line because, as I said, we're making this look dirty and weathered, so we want to look like the paint is chipped, so we are just kind of dabbing the edge of those lines to create a broken edge rather than a hard edge for them. We're going to further refine that later on, so it doesn't have to be perfect right now. We're just kind of getting the idea of the general shape that we want around the body. So you're just going to keep on moving around the miniature, painting the sections you want to be the markings for their unit. So, like I said, we're doing the 501st, so we're doing blue here, and the color is Signar Blue Base. Next up, we're going to use Apothecary White contrast paint, and we're going to just put it over everything, the white armor and the blue that we already painted. That's the reason why we did the markings first. This is going to help tie it together. When you're trying to make something look dirty, it's a good idea to do a wash over everything to tie it all together, because we don't want the armor to look dingy and then the markings to look bright on top of it. We want everything to look dingy and dirty, like it's had the same amount of dirt. So like I said, you're just pretty much slathering this over everything. Your goal on the flat panels is, though, you can see as I brush, I try to make sure it doesn't pull heavily on those flat panels. A little bit's okay because we're trying to make it look dingy, but we don't want to have a lot of tide marks. It'll look painted. We want it to look dirty, not painted, so we want to hide the brush strokes and hide kind of the signs that it's actual paint instead of what we want it to look like. So try not to let it pull on those flat surfaces. You can just, the contrast takes a while to dry, so you can just pull it right off as you're painting if you have a pull that you don't like. Sorry for being a little bit out of frame here, but I'm using Black Templar combined with Thamar Black paint from P3. So if you mix standard paints in with the contrast paints, it gives you something that covers far better than the contrast normally would, so but flows nicely like the contrast. So that's what I'm doing here. So with this color, we're painting the lens of the helmet, the gun, and all of the undersuit. In a second, you're going to notice that I start to paint the rim around the edge of the top of the helmet. I didn't like how that looked black, so I went back with my color I base coated everything with, and then I went in with Apothecary White. Just keep moving around the miniature and painting everything that should be black, like the undersuit, gun, and lens. And that's pretty much all we have to do for this step. Here's where I need to apologize. So I recorded the rest of the footage of me painting this miniature, and it's actually the nitty-gritty detail you probably really want to see. My hands were completely out of frame almost the entire time, and when they were in frame, they were kind of out of focus. I've never claimed to be a great filmmaker. So I've put in what footage I could salvage from what's left, and I'm going to describe to you what I'm doing. Hopefully you can follow along. If not, I'm going to make it up to you guys. So what I'm going to do is film another video painting another clone trooper. I think I might do a different regiment, maybe 212th next time. But what I'm also going to do is paint it in the way I normally paint things, with the airbrush and the oil paints and that sort of stuff. But these steps right now, they'd be the same no matter how you start out. So these steps are going to be the same in the next video too. So I'll make sure they're in frame next time so you can see them really well. But for now, I'll describe them, and you should be able to follow along just by my description. And if you've watched some of my other painting videos, you get an idea of kind of some of the same techniques we're using. So hopefully, just follow along with what I'm going to do right now, and then we'll salvage it next time. So what I'm doing here is using Basilicum Gray contrast, and I'm just kind of going under all the edges that are raised. Like I said, this is totally out of frame. You can't really see what I'm doing, but it's the best footage I could salvage. The other thing I'm going to do with this is draw scratches along the flat plates of the armor to add some visual interest. So you're going to go under the edges and just draw little scratches. Make sure you have a fine point on your brush as you are doing this. So You can kind of not see what I'm doing, but that's what I'm doing right now, is drawing lines under the edges and kind of putting it in the recesses. So next up, we're using Sickly Skin, and I am dabbing at the edges of the blue to, like I said, further refine that scratch paint look. We are also going to use the dab edge highlights around the edges of all of these pieces. So you're going along the edges, edge highlighting it, but in a dabbing motion with this color. Another thing that I did not have footage for was I did the same technique on the gun with first Graveyard Denim from P3 and then Trollblood Highlight from P3. So it's the same dabbing highlight technique along the edge of the gun. It's out of focus, but you can kind of see a little bit that there's highlights on the gun. I just am not good at filming out of focus, barely in frame. I kind of tried, but I wasn't paying close enough attention apparently. Like I said, I'm going to make it up for you next time, but just keep dabbing that white color along the edges. The other thing we're going to do with the same color is dab under those lines that we drew with the Basilicum Gray to kind of give a highlight underneath so it looks like a scratch. We can also just do little scratches with the brush that don't have the Basilicum Gray over top, just on its own, so it's kind of shallower scratches. So the next step, we're going to repeat the same process we just did with the Sickly Flesh with pure white paint. I'm using an Artist brand for this, but you can use any white paint you like. So it's the same process of just kind of dotting the edges along and making little scratches in the armor. You can do some more underlines on the darker scratches we already made. But if you go back and watch my footage of the Warcry set that I painted, it's the same technique of that dabbing edge highlights. So unfortunately the footage didn't work, but it's what we just did, just repeating it with white. So this is the finished product. Another thing that I didn't have footage for filming was I used Gore-Grunta Fur contrast paint on the boots, the same way I was doing this Basilicum Gray in the recesses. I just did it along the boots to make the boots a little bit dirty. So here is the finished product. Hopefully you can get an idea of what I was talking about with the scratches as you look at the miniature rotate. So that's it. That's painting a clone trooper from Star Wars Legion. So like I said, I'm going to do another video using my regular techniques of how to paint this, and we'll also make sure we have that little scratches and all of the edge highlighting done very well in focus next time, so you guys can have it down. Hopefully you guys found that useful. If you did, drop a like, give us a subscribe, make sure you hit the bell button so you're notified for the next video when I paint the clone trooper again using my other techniques, and we'll have the highlights in nice focus. So until next time, keep on gaming and paint your minis.